Hey sis, welcome. So I am here with Lauren, and she is going to be speaking inside of the When She Speaks Summit. Today I wanted to come meet with her and ask her some questions. So first, hello Lauren, how are you?
Hello, I am excited to be here. Very excited to talk with you, Christina.
Yeah, no, thank you for answering some of these questions. I kind of just wanted to go a little bit deeper into your topic. I think it's going to help a lot of sisters as far as them navigating the season that they're currently in. So if you
It's
could,
helped me. It's helped me navigate my season.
I love it. If you could just take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and what God has been doing for you in this season.
Yes. So I'm in my 30s. I am a mom of three with one on the way, hopefully in the next 4 weeks. I am married to one, and we've been married for 13 years. I love Indian food. I love asking deep questions. People have told me that that can be intimidating, so I try and not dive in too fast, but just being real upfront is where I'm at. I don't have time to fake it, and so I try and be real with whoever I'm talking to. And I really want to be an organized person, but I'm just not. And I have finally come clean with that. So please accept this confession that I am not an organized person. And my season, oh man, um, my season that the Lord has me in has been one of wilderness for probably about a year or more. And that has consisted of loss, um, loneliness, confusion, and doubt. And I share about the details of the onset of that about a year ago in the summit when our family moved from Colorado to California, why we moved and what that's brought in our life. But God has been teaching me, I think that was your question. You can always remind me what you actually asked.
No, 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 you shared a lot. Yeah, and I think something that the Father is doing for everybody is just allowing us to be more authentic and kind of letting go of control and just
Yeah.
we talked about, I'm not perfect and it's just kind of and I think that is a beautiful place to be. Just show up the way that you are and be able to push out the things that need to be pushed out. And even in the wilderness, you talked about that, and I think that that's something that a lot of sisters can relate to being in that season, but getting to the other side of that, it's always worth it. So thank you for sharing that. Your talk is about identity. And this is something that I think, regardless of whatever stage you are in life, this is something that can truly impact how you go through the things that the season that you are experiencing. So can you talk a little bit about like what is identity and like why it's important?
Yeah. So identity is, if you're coming in being like, I don't know what that word means, identity is who you know yourself to be. And who you know yourself to be is defined by your experiences, your roles, your titles, your memories, the things that you've done or like accomplishments. And none of that is bad. I go into details about what those things actually are in the summit. But in my identity journey, um, like as a kid, I was the theater girl. I was the legacy child, like carrying on the legacy of my family. I was deemed the social butterfly in high school and college, but I'm an introvert. I know that in some circles, I was thought of as the Christian. And here's that's the high level of identity, like who I know myself to be, and why I've come to know that. And what I then experienced when my life got real with God the Father and with his love and with his presence in my life, he said, no, Lauren, those things aren't bad, but first and foremost, you are loved. First and foremost, Jesus said, you are my bride. And after my husband and I got married, we had 5 years of hardship in our marriage and uh, heartbreak in our marriage and lies and arguments and fighting. And we're 13 years in now, guys. And those things still happen, but I'm not on the floor crying about them anymore. But I have been. And it was hearing God say, "You are my bride, no matter what title you hold, or if that title is taken away from you, um, no matter what." And so that's a little bit about my identity story within relationship, because I know that's why we're all here around Christina in the Kingdom Lounge. But what I talk about in the summit with identity is different than that. The summit talks about kingdom identity, and this is just a sneak peek. I don't want to spoil it, but kingdom identity is when no matter your circumstance, experience, roles, titles, you receive from God who he calls you to be. And that starts with statements from scripture, but it's so much more than just the statements from scripture. It's personal, it's unique. I'm going to stop talking now before I spoil the surprise.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I have a list of questions here, and I am going to stay on topic, but I want to hit. I get so emotional whenever we talk about like relationships and being on the floor and like all of the ups and downs that comes with relationships specifically. Um, so excuse me for tearing up a little bit. Something that hit me though when we talk about the identity part is that early on in my journey, something that the father told me was, how did he put it? It was a do not label yourself nothing other than a child of God. That was extremely important for my journey because I feel like everyone is trying to put me in a box, right? They're trying to figure
Yeah.
out which side of religion or which side of the church or whatever. And immediately from the beginning, he said, "You don't label yourself nothing but a child of God." Because what I have for you is so much more than just an organization or just a church or, now within that, as I accepted that, that is then when I have to go and say, okay, this is the title, that he gave me, but I still have to figure out who I am in him, right? That within itself
Mhm.
is its own, journey of you on discovering and actually stepping into and believing the identity that the Father has already written about you. So yeah, it's extremely important. Again, I think this topic is something that sisters are going to really need. It really is going to help make the journey better. If you know who you are while you're going through the journey, it just makes it a little bit better. Okay, so the next
Right.
question. Okay, if someone's listening feels like they lost themselves because of heartbreak, disappointment, divorce, loss, or a difficult season, where would you encourage them to begin? Let me know if you want me to repeat it.
Well, acknowledge where you are. I lead a group called the Faith Experiment, and it's a 5-day challenge. Each day has a different prayer practice and meditation. And the first prayer practice has you sit in stillness and in silence and in solitude. It's guided, so you're listening to this to be able to close your eyes and just like realize, where am I? What am I going through? Because our emotions are strong, right? My default emotion is anger. I wish it wasn't, but that's how I'm made. And God's healing that a little bit every day. But um, identify where you are and what you're experiencing and be honest about it. Don't try and sugarcoat it. Don't try and ignore it or make it better than it is. Because, and here's my story over the last year. I so often have tried to make a fast and easy fix it solution so that I can stay in control or that I appear to have a good life or have checked the boxes of where I think I should be in life. Don't rush to fix your problem. God hasn't let an easy solution or outcome happen yet because He might be in the wilderness. He might be in the heartbreak experience. And the only way for you to experience him in a real way, in your real time and space, is to be there with him. And if you try and get that fast solution and fast fix, you're going to miss him. And the cycle that you've been in is going to keep repeating. He's the only one that can pull you out of the cycle to actually experience something good and beautiful and true, not just in the life around you, but in who you are and who he's made you to be.
I love that. You said acknowledge where you are. And this is powerful because a lot of the time, sisters, I don't want to say they have a hard time acknowledging where they are, but that exposure is the beginning of freedom. So how you can say, you deal with anger, right? You being able to say that is like you know what you're battling with, you know how the enemy is going to show up. So that is a
Hmm.
first step in saying, I know what dwells here, right? I know what dwells in me. I know what I'm working on. I know what I'm
Hmm.
as opposed to you having that anger, but you're not acknowledging that it even exists. So in your mind, it's like everything else is a problem, or but really, it's like, wait a minute, let me sit in where I am at, what I am dealing with, right? And then that is kind of what prompts you coming out of agreement with it, or you saying, yes, I deal with this, but let me figure out how to get to the other side of it. So I love that. I love that. Acknowledge where you are in any type of situation. Okay. The next question is your summary section is called The Identity You Were Given versus the Identity God Gives You. What first led you to start exploring the topic for yourself?
I kind of jumped the gun earlier with talking about some of the identities that I had taken on. And so I'm going to talk about the last year here. Um, I have known about the concept of kingdom identity for probably 5 years now. And my first experience of like, okay, what is kingdom identity? What does that even mean? Was looking at other women in my life and being like, oh my, she has something that I think I'm missing. She has something with the Spirit and with Jesus that, like, I'm a child of God. I have the same moment that you said you have of like, relinquish all the titles people have given you and just say, I'm a child of God. But there's something different between claiming what God has given all people who have said, Jesus, you are my source, and I'm not going to follow other sources that apply to everybody. But then there's something that he gives that is just for you that you you can't experience through someone else. You can only experience through him. And I remember sitting outside a coffee shop with my journal, and I had been practicing, okay, God, what do you have to say to me today? What do you want me to know, Lord? And just listening. And the process of listening to his voice, learning to hear his voice as opposed to lies or my inner voice that is not from him was step one. But then learning to hear his voice of love was hard to receive, honestly, because I know the lies I'm believing. I know the issues that I have. And it's one thing to say, okay, I'm not going to believe those lies. I'm not going to believe that what happened to me is who I am now and like turn your back on it. It's another thing to look in the direction of where Jesus is and follow his invitation of love and receive that truth. There's a little bit of my story sitting outside the
Mhm.
coffee shop and receiving his truth and hearing who he called me and saying, yes, I agree with you, God.
Okay, so what came to mind as you were sharing this was there was a download I got. I did a TikTok video about this. But God was telling me how I can't remember the exact phrase. It was something about lineage. Um,
Mm.
and when it hit me, I was writing down, but as I was writing, I was like her knowing her, and I was going to say legacy, but that's not what came out. It was lineage. And so I sat with that for a moment. I was like, what is going on? He said, what's happening to a lot of his children, specifically the women, because that's who I minister to, is they are taking on the identity of their forefathers. They're taking on the
Mm.
identity of their bloodline.
Yeah.
He said that is what the enemy has been installing in them since birth, right? Their mother installs it in them, their father installs it, their cousins, all of that there is being installed in them. But what they have to do is take on the identity of the kingdom. The identity of God is completely different from
It
the
is.
identity, right? So, and this is why it's so important. Once you figure out who you are, nothing can stop you. It's like, I know who I am. I know who sent me. God sent me. So that's all of the audacity, or that's all the proof, or that's
Yeah.
all the validation that you need is I know who I am and I'm walking in that.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, one last question. When everything else feels uncertain, what are some truths about our identity that remains unchanged?
And I mean, last summer, this is part of the story in the summit. Last summer, I was to the point of despair with what we had done, kind of in the name of like, God, we're with you, we're following you. On the other side of that decision, I was in despair. And I said, God, I don't know who I am anymore. And I don't know who you are. Even if you don't know who you are, Jesus does. And he knows you more than you know yourself. And the hope that I had at that point of knowing, okay, I don't know who I am. I don't know what's going on. And I don't like any of it. This is extremely uncomfortable. Um, brought me to the hope of knowing he knows and he will tell me as long as I draw near to him and keep asking was what ultimately brought me out of that place of despair. And you were made, you were chosen, you were loved. All of those things were extremely helpful as a fallback for the the turmoil that I was feeling and the season where I didn't feel like I could hear him speak these specific words to me. And so I've put together, based on that experience in my life, I've put together a list of, man, there's probably over 100 I am statements. It's a PDF. It's inside the Faith Experiment, which is the school group that I run. And these are the foundational truths for you. If you've said, Jesus, you're my source, and I'm not going towards any other sources, that you fall back on when you don't know who you are anymore and when everything feels uncertain. And you can access that in the Faith Experiment. And I can share a little bit more about that community um, through chat or in the summit.
Yes. So, what hit me first? You don't know who you are, and it's like a you acknowledging that is the freedom, right?
Yeah,
Like because everyone else throughout our whole life has told us who we are, but when we can say, "I don't know who I am," that means that you have detached from everything that everyone else has told you you are, and you're saying, "I don't know." It's like a
you
clean
just have
slate.
to be honest.
Yeah. And now you're giving the Father room and space to let you know who you are. Because it's difficult to do that when everyone has told you that you are unworthy of love, right? When you are in agreement with it. And you're like, I'm
Hmm.
unworthy of love because that's what my mama told me, my daddy told me, whatever. And so when the Father
Hmm.
tries to tell you you are loved, just but my mama told me I'm not. But when you can say, I don't know who I am. Like, I don't know what I am. As opposed to what my mama told me, you coming out of agreement or you detaching from what everybody else told you. Like, I don't know. This is a clean slate.
Hmm.
I don't know. And I think that allows us to receive who he says we are better because it's not
Exactly.
contradicting anything that we are in agreement with. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yes, if you could, I would like to share the community here within this post, and then we'll go ahead and also share it inside of your talk. So your talk is going to be on day one. You all tune in to get more. Um, any last words, encouragements, anything you want to share with the sisters before we end the
Mhm.
call?
Man, I'm so excited to learn more about who you are
Mm.
and get into real conversation and depth. I'm looking forward to that. And please connect with me. Connect with me through the chat and Kingdom Lounge. Connect with me through the Faith Experiment because I love sharing similar seasons. So if you have any kind of wilderness in your life, if you are wanting to know what it means to hear God's voice in real time and real space, for the decisions you're making, for the emotions that are creeping up, and if anything about identity hit a nerve and you're like, oh, I got to look into this, then let's talk more. Let's connect and be friends about it because my community is called an experiment because that's what I am in right now. Experimenting day to day with faith, with Jesus, and with who I am learning myself to be.
I love that. Thank you so much. Identity, it is so important. And once you know your identity, you become unstoppable. Thank you so much. You all know that the summit begins on the 7th, July the 7th. Lauren, her talk is going to be on day one. If you all have any questions, put them in the comment section. Know that Lauren is here to help you out. Again, she has her own community where there's a whole experience happening. And although here we deal with heartbreak, and we're trying to get off the floor, and um, that's true. That's what we're here for. But I know that God wants so much more for you all. After you all get off that floor and out of the heartbreak, there's going to be something else that the Father is going to be leading you into. So you all connect with Lauren. All of her information will be below. And I will see you all on the 7th. You all stay encouraged.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.